Welcome to Unleashing Happiness. I am your host, Cecilia Hendricks, and today we're going to go back to what I feel I do best and what I truly enjoy the most, which is actually talking about Neville Goddard and his books. So I'm going to be reading from chapter 1 and chapter 2 of Your Faith is Your Fortune and demystifying some of what he's talking about. And hopefully the plan is that this gives you some insight on how to use this in your own life. And it should be especially helpful if you've read his books and have not been able to really follow what he's talking about. Trust me, I've been there. Some of it can be really confusing, but I'm super excited to get started, and I hope you are too. Welcome back, and thank you for joining me. I am kind of going back to my roots a little bit. I probably talked about this in the intro, but I had this epiphany recently that I was like, what really lights me up and what really kind of is my passion is definitely talking about these law of assumption specifically type of principles, I guess is the best word to use, and being able to demystify them, right? So a lot of times when I first started reading like Neville Goddard, especially, it could be relatively difficult to understand what he was saying. I had to go back to it quite a few times. A couple months back, I actually did a series on Feeling is the Secret, and I'll put the link down to those episodes below if you would like to go back and visit those. I think they turned out really well. Essentially, in that one, I was reading the full chapter and kind of talking about it. Your Faith is Your Fortune. I'm going to do it a little differently, and I'm actually going to pull out snippets to talk about on the podcast, kind of align it to my understanding, the way I've had it work in my life, and sharing out with others that I think would really be beneficial, especially if you've been kind of struggling to get these principles to work for you and you're like, I don't understand what is being said or how I can shift my mindset. Hopefully me saying it in a little bit of a different way will really help you out and you'll have the epiphanies that you've been looking for. And then I will go actually onto my YouTube channel and do a video where I read the full chapter and add a little bit of insight, but maybe not quite as much as the podcast. So you can kind of choose which way you would like to digest it. And if you want to listen here and then go back and watch the YouTube video or vice versa, whatever works for you will be available. Today, I'm actually going to go over chapter 1 and chapter 2 because the first chapter is relatively short. If you do not already have the book, I will put a link to where you can buy the complete reader that I have. It's Neville Goddard's, all of his books together in one edition. It's a pretty fat sucker. I love it. It's probably one of my favorite books and looks very worn when you see my copy now because I've read it so many times. And then there's also a beautiful website that has not only made the text available absolutely for free, but they also have a version that you can listen to. And when I was first learning how to read Neville Goddard, that was my key to success, is that I would go to this website and I would read a chapter, not really follow, honestly, what was being said, and then listen to the chapter. And a lot of times I would go back and reread the chapter. But having that tie of reading and then listening was so beneficial to me. And it really opened up my understanding of the teachings and what he was trying to say. And then, of course, it helped me start to implement this stuff into my life in a very smart, practical way that just made sense. The more that I understood it, I was like, man, I can really see this happening in my own life. I can see how this is playing out for me. I can see the pieces that are actually making sense. And that just helped build my faith because yes, while I had this faith and I'm like, I believe these people, I believe what is being shared, I just have this kind of inner feeling that maybe I can't pinpoint, but I feel like this is truth. But the more that I was able to match it up and have it make like logical sense to me of, yes, I've seen this play out in my life before, well, before I ever read any of these principles, I just was able to build my faith based off of that. And the more that it happened, the better that it got. So I think it's really beneficial to go back to this website. They did such a good job with it. And it is so beneficial. For a little bit, it was down a couple years ago, and I actually thought I might cry. I was so sad to see the website gone, and it is back. Thank goodness, because it is just one of those websites that you're like, wow, finding this is like finding a pot of gold on the internet. Although I said I wasn't going to do this, because the first chapter is so short, I'm just going to read the full first chapter and then go back and chat about this a little bit. In the beginning was the unconditioned awareness of being, and the unconditioned awareness of being became conditioned by imagining itself to be something, and the unconditioned awareness of being became that which it had imagined itself to be. So did creation begin. By this law, first conceiving, then becoming that conceived, all things evolve out of no thing. And without this sequence, there is not anything made that is made. Before Abraham or the world was, I am. When all of time shall cease to be, I am. I am the formless awareness of being conceiving myself to be man. By my everlasting law of being, I am compelled to be and to express all that I believe myself to be. I am the eternal no-thingness containing within my formless self the capacity to be all things. I am that in which all my conceptions of myself live and move and have their being, and apart from which they are not. I dwell within every conception of myself. From this withinness, I ever seek to transcend all conceptions of myself. By the very law of my being, I transcend my conceptions of myself only as I believe myself to be that which transcend. I am the law of being, and beside me there is no law. I am that I am. Now, if you're newer to Neville Goddard, you may actually be thinking, what the heck did you just say? And I will say the first time that I picked up one of his books, that's exactly how I felt. I read the chapter and I was like, I literally do not understand what this man is saying. I can read the words. They're all in English, and English is my first and only language, but I do not understand what is being said here. Like, how am I supposed to follow this? What are people talking about? And I just had to really lean into meditating on it, and I continued to return to it. And it's kind of funny because I cannot tell you why I kept returning to it. I found it so confusing, and I to this day cannot say here's why I kept returning. I think sometimes we have these draws and this desire to do something, and we just end up kind of being nudged in the right direction. And I feel like that's what happened for me with Neville Goddard's content. I just continued to get nudged into his information, into making sure that I continued to read until I understood. And again, I'm going to share what my understanding is. I would love, if you're listening on YouTube and you have a different understanding or something you'd like to discuss further, definitely leave it down in the comments below. I love sparking the conversation and understanding what epiphanies that you have while you're listening to this, if any. If you're listening on a podcast hosting platform, you can definitely shoot me an email if there's anything you want to discuss. Some of those I would definitely love to be able to read on air and discuss. So my email is unleashinghappiness@ceciliahendricks.com. Let's start to break down this chapter a little bit. He starts by saying, in the beginning was the unconditioned awareness of being, and the unconditioned awareness of being became conditioned by imagining itself to be something. So I kind of have always read this of, in the beginning, there was God. Now, what God was at some point or where that beginning might be, I literally have no idea. I just don't think that my human brain can even comprehend what a beginning may have looked like, but at least the awakening of an awareness. The very first thing that you know, and something that you will never lose, is that you are, right? You are here. You are existing. You are whatever type of form you are that you're paying attention to. But that is like the I am, because you just are. So the I am is just being. You are here. It is completely unconditioned. It would be as if like you were reborn and your mind was completely fresh. You had no thought, no understanding of who you were or what you are. You just are. And you have this understanding that you are, right? That is the unconditioned awareness of being. There is nothing that you have conditioned onto yourself at that point. You could be female, you could be male, you could be happy, you could be sad, you could be middle class, you could be high class, you could be in poverty, you could be anything in the world, right? You're just there, and you have not conditioned it with any type of awareness. But then that's where the imagination starts to come in. At some point in our lives, and as we're awakening, we start to condition what we believe of ourselves. So either that's because something we've been told over and over, it's an experience that then has solidified for us. It is something that starts to condition who or what we are. So then that unconditioned awareness of being became conditioned by imagining itself to be something. That's where everything begins. That's where the creation begins. Because at that point, you're actually making a choice based on your own belief of yourself. And that's what this chapter is talking about. All of the experiences in your life are conditioned based on your imagination. And imagination is like the thinking, the feeling, where you dwell, what state you're in, the identity that you hold of yourself is exactly what is going to make your conception of yourself. All of these amazing and sometimes not so amazing feeling experiences that you've had in life are going to build your conception of yourself. It all starts within, whether you see yourself as attractive or loved or cared for or mistreated or able to pay your bills, not able to pay your bills, with your loved one, not with your loved one. All of that is conditioned by what you take in from the environment and choose to dwell in. And I know that sometimes that can seem a little overwhelming or a little bit like there's casting blame, like you're choosing to dwell in this bad thing. And I don't think there is any blame here. Self-forgiveness is such a big key and an understanding and an awakening. I have had experiences in my life that I would say are not pleasant. They're not ones that I would ever want anybody to have to experience. I've had trauma within my childhood. I have had trauma within being an adult. I have been treated poorly by people that I truly loved and cared about. I've been lied to. I've had these experiences. But the more that I've awakened to the fact that I truly believe that our consciousness is what creates reality, it's our perception of an event that is true for us. It's what we accept based off of our own filter of what is true, not only of the world, but definitely of us and the way that we're treated and the way things are presented to us. The more that I have an understanding that I didn't necessarily create these things, it's not that I wanted these things to happen to me, but they're all an experience. I get to experience life. And sometimes life can be kind of crappy and life cannot feel good and it can be difficult, but all of those experiences have led me to something greater. And I'm not telling you that you have to see the silver lining in a horrible thing that happened to you. I'm not telling you that, oh, you just have to understand that that's going to lead to something greater, because we're human. And sometimes I don't want to hear that. When I lose a loved one to a very traumatic death, like I did when my cousin passed away in 2018, I don't want to hear that it's for a greater good. I have a belief that he has moved on to something greater and that he is still existing, that he's not gone. He's just gone in this version. My perception can no longer see him here because his death was real here to me. But that does not mean that I have a belief that he is not continuing to live and he is not continuing to grow and his soul does not still exist. Nothing ever is gone. There is no real death is in the way that we see it here. But that doesn't mean that I don't miss him. That doesn't mean that I'm not sad that he's gone and that I wish that his death had not come in the way that it did. And that I'm not sad over the heartbreak that I saw from the rest of my family as we lost this like very cherished member of our family in a very traumatic way and extremely untimely. He was very young. He had a lot of life ahead of him. He left children behind. It is heartbreaking. And I miss him so much all the time. But I also understand that grief is part of living and it's something that I get to do. And that I truly see it as me having grief is because I loved him so much and I still love him so much. So my grief is a missing of him. And it does not mean that I believe that I created that or that I drew this into my world, because I don't understand how everything works. And I see that with even the traumatic events that I experienced in my own childhood. Those were not things that I called into my world because I wanted them. I don't understand why they came into my world. And I can learn from those and I can grow from those. And I can understand that the emotions that I have that are around that traumatic event, any traumatic event, is an experience that I'm allowed to have. That does not mean that I'm not allowed to feel sad from it, or that I'm not allowed to feel upset that it happened or angry at the people who do it. I can have those emotions, But it is still a conditioning then. These experiences have created the person that I am now. It's created the filter that is in my world, in my own perception, for me to see myself and the way that others behave. And I don't think that had I not gone through some of this like horrific stuff, I mean, some of this stuff has been very, very heavy. But I truly believe that had I not gone through it, I would not be where I am now. And I think I'm doing something good now. I like sharing this information with people. I like talking to others. And I like being able to understand myself on such a bigger level than just like the surface. Because I think there's so much to all of us. There's so much more to all of us than what we see. And that's my I am. I am this person. I have become this identity. And that is what it means to condition my I am. So when you start out as an unconditioned awareness of being, and then that unconditioned awareness of being becomes conditioned by imagining itself. I can take those experiences and choose what I'm going to do with them. I can take those experiences and decide how that's going to shape who I am and the way that I behave and the way that I present myself and feel about myself and the way that I love others and the way that I give unconditionally to the best of my current ability for where I am in my own state to others. And understand that there are people in my life that I love better now because of my experiences. And I'm really thankful for that. But again, that does not say that you created everything or that you wanted these experiences to happen in your life that are not pleasant. And so always remember to go back to self-forgiveness. And we'll talk more about that as the series goes on, because I really want to get into like revision and redemption and the way that you can repent. But for these chapters, we're definitely talking more about the ability to condition yourself. And you can do this through many different ways. If you would like to sign up for my email newsletter, I'm going to leave a link down below where you can sign up for that. I'm going to be starting to send out emails that are telling you some of the ways that you can do this and giving you kind of like actionable steps that you can take this week to make sure that you're getting these things done and that you're staying connected. My plan in this epiphany that I had as I was going into this week in this content was to say, I need to bring this together. I really feel like I have a good message to share. I hope if you're listening here, you also agree that I have a good message to share. And I want to be closer to my listeners. I want to be closer to all of you that are out there listening to me. And I want you to feel like we have a true relationship where you're getting benefit from listening to me. You are giving me your time by listening to this podcast episode. And I'm looking now, we're like 17 minutes in. If you're still listening, thank you so much. I'm so happy that you're here. Like the gratitude that I feel of having listeners and people who reach out to me to say, I really like your content. I think it's fantastic. I listen to you each week. I wish that I could bottle up that gratitude and like throw it at people as I'm walking down the street, because I'm like literally bursting with it. It's like coming out of my ears and my eyes. I am so absolutely grateful for everybody that's here. It's so phenomenal. I get text messages from like family members and friends who are like, hey, listen to your podcast episode and I loved it. And it just makes me feel really good. And so I want to start connecting more of that content together and making sure that you are getting the benefit really from listening, and that it's all being connected throughout your week so that you can stay motivated on that horse and on top of things and really experiencing amazing life changes that you can make when you start to implement this and when you understand it better, right? Because I can tell you, I have to record a couple times reading this chapter because the words still don't always make all that much sense. They kind of are a little bit difficult at times to follow. So if you have struggled to follow or understand, I really, really hope that this is giving you benefit and it's helping enlighten you to how you can use these principles in your life to make dramatic changes, quick changes, and really feel good changes. Now, the second chapter of Your Faith is Your Fortune is called You Shall Decree. And it says, thou shalt also decree a thing, and it shall be established unto thee, and the light shall shine upon thy ways. Then he continues, man has always decreed that which has appeared in his world. He is today decreeing that which is appearing in his world, and he shall continue to do so as long as man is conscious of being man. It's like, hold on, wait a minute here. How do you decree a thing? You do that with your feelings and your beliefs. That is the conditioning that we were talking about in the first chapter. So when you're conditioning your I am, you're just this, you're a being, right? You're here, you are, right? And then you're going to say, I am this thing. Well, that's tied to your state. A state is the same thing as an identity. You can actually see what identity you're holding based on your reactions to everyday life. What do you allow to kind of flop you around? Like, let's say that you're looking for a very special person. You are in love with somebody and they are not quite showing you the same love back. You say, wait a minute, I want to take a look at what my reactions are. If they leave you on red, what's your reaction? How are you spending your days? Are you checking their Instagram constantly to see if they've posted somebody else? Are you checking to see if you've been unblocked on Snapchat so that you can send them a message? Really start to pay attention to that, because that shows you your state. It shows you what you're decreeing. If you are constantly looking at this special person to see if you've been unblocked or if they're seeing somebody else, you are consistently decreeing that you are unloved by this person. You are consistently decreeing that you are a bit in a desperate state. I apologize if that comes across a little offensive. I definitely don't mean it that way, but you are desperately seeking the love of another person. You're not giving it to yourself. And you should definitely give it to yourself first. You can actually fulfill yourself. You don't need external events to fulfill you. But I want to add, they're phenomenal, right? Like, I'm here to experience life. I'm not here to just be in my head. I love my own mind. I love the way that I feel about myself. And the more that I focus on me loving myself, the more the world reflects it right back at me. The way that I'm treated, the way that people present themselves to me just gets better and better every single day. And it's mind-boggling. I've had people parrot things back to me that I've considered in my mind, that I've thought about in my mind, because I've conditioned myself to be loved and to be desired and to be magnetic. That's how I see myself. And I want to share that a few years ago, I did not see myself that way at all. I had actually become a little bit of a shell of myself. I didn't know myself well enough to feel that way about me anymore. And I had some life changes that were very difficult to go through, but they awakened this back in me. And I'm thankful for that part of it. I'm thankful that I am able to look at myself and be like, man, I'm fantastic. I think I'm great. And I want everybody listening to also be like, yeah, I am great. Because I'm telling you, I think you're great. I think you're phenomenal. I think you're amazing. I think that every single person on this planet has something so remarkable to offer. And why we're here, I have no idea, right? Like, I think we're all fragments of God experiencing life. And so I want to experience it. But that does not mean that I cannot give the fulfillment to myself, because it's still my own perception. So when you have a reaction to something, you're decreeing how you feel about that. You're decreeing that this is truth for your life. You're decreeing that this is truth for you every single time that you react to it, dwell in it, and allow yourself to get frustrated by it. And he continues to go on and say, man does not command things to appear by his words, which are, more often than not, a confession of his doubts and fears. Decreeing is ever done in consciousness. Every man automatically expresses that which he is conscious of being. Without effort or the use of words, at every moment in time, man is commanding himself to be and to possess that which he is conscious of being and possessing. Now, we'll probably get into this more and more as episodes go on, but I do not believe this does not mean that you can't use affirmations, or you can't journal, or you can't script, or use a vision board or visualization or any other technique to get yourself in that feeling. But the feeling is what we're going after. It becomes what you actually believe as true. It's what is going to manifest in your life because you have made the choice that that is actually what's true. And you can get there in many different ways. We'll talk about techniques as we go on, because you can find which technique works for you. But when it comes down to it, it is your belief that changes. It's where you dwell. It's what you are conscious of being. It's whatever you have conditioned yourself as. So once you actually have that condition and you believe it to be true, that's then what you start to see reflected in your world. I can tell you that a few years ago, when I did not feel like I was magnetic, I did not really see these kind of great pieces of me. What was reflected back to me is not the same as what's reflected now. So when people say that people are attracted to confidence, I think that's what this is. And it's not a fake, like cocky confidence. It's just I feel good about myself. I love myself. I like who I am. I think that I'm funny. I think that I'm smart. I think that I'm creative. I think that I have a gift to share out to the world, the same as you do. You just have to find yours, and it might be something totally different than mine. But once you condition yourself as that person, that's what then you start to see. And that's how you decree. You are decreeing by your feeling. You are decreeing by what you have conditioned yourself as. So I hope that you found this helpful. If you did, definitely share it out. If you're listening on YouTube, leave a comment or like the video. That's phenomenal. If you are listening on the podcast, I would love if you left a rating or review. It just lets me know that I'm on the right track. This is stuff that you like to hear about because I really like speaking about it. I hope that you can hear the passion in my voice. I think I've really found the way that I want to present myself to you so that you are getting benefit just as much as I am getting benefit, because that's really important to me. And then on Tuesday, I am going to be publishing a video to my YouTube channel. You can find that down below, but on YouTube, I'm Unleashing Happiness. And I'm 99% sure you can also find me just by searching Cecilia Hendrix, Hendrix. But on that video, I've got a video coming out that's really about this. I'm going to read both the chapters and then just add a little bit to the content, kind of same as I did today, talking about just a little bit, but it'll go a little bit more of like reading the full chapters. So you can definitely go listen there as well. And then if you would like to start getting my emails that are going to give you actionable steps of kind of how you can start to implement this into your life and just expand on what we talked about today, there will be a link down below so that you can sign up for that as well. So this was chapter 1 and chapter 2 of Your Faith is Your Fortune by Neville Goddard. I hope that you enjoyed it. I absolutely love this book. I cannot wait to do more of this content. And again, if there's anything you have questions on, if there's something that didn't make sense, please reach out. I would absolutely love to hear from you. I truly love hearing from people. So I hope you have a beautiful rest of your week. And I thank you so much for joining me.